One thing that CP told me that has always stuck with me was you guys were hard to play against, not only because of the offense, but because of the defense and the
Yeah.
switching. And whether it was like that last year, um, when I played in LA, or all the subsequent, 3 or 4 years after that, is like so disruptive to your offense. It ended up causing the ball to stick a lot.
Yeah.
There's no flow to the offense.
Right.
And CP said to me, he's like, the reason we did that was strictly so that we could try to beat the Warriors,
That's
because we
right.
knew we had to switch against them, and you end up doing it and having a lot of success with it. But the thing that always stood out about that was like teams would inevitably try to post bigger players, and you and CP and even James, you guys always held your own.
Right.
You guys always held your own. So when you're talking about D'Antoni not showing a lot of film, like defensively, your schemes, like how much did you guys look at after timeout plays, end of game plays, as you're getting ready for an opponent? Because I think those are probably the only times really where you could like strategize around the switching.
Literally, we just kept it simple. Like, we really didn't do too much trapping. We just switched everything, and what we wanted to do was just break your rhythm. We wanted to turn you into a one-on-one team. That's what it really do. We want you to come down, not move the ball, try to score on this one-on-one, and see if you can really beat us that way. Because on the other end, on the offensive end, you're not going to outscore. So it was like pick your poison.
Were you aware, being on those Houston teams, that essentially the rest of the league, besides LeBron and the Cavs, had stopped trying for a couple of years when they had Kevin?
I don't know, man. We just had some unique teams over there in Houston.
I don't mean you guys. I mean besides you guys. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Besides you guys and LeBron Cavs, it seemed like the rest of the league was willing to sort of take a couple of years off from spending and going after a championship. And that's, I always give Daryl a lot of credit.
Right.
You guys had a team that was like built to compete with them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you kind of knew it, you just kind of knew it was going to be us and the Warriors in the Western Conference Final, and then you're going to run into the Cavs in the final in the East. So, of course, it was probably boring times, but I bet you it was probably fun for a team like us to really compete against the Warriors and have those chances to really have a chance to beat them, and just didn't come about.
One of the things that I think changed when you went to Houston, because I don't really remember in LA or in New Orleans you spacing to 28 to 30 feet. And when you got to New Orleans, and Ryan Anderson was there for a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
He would space to 28 feet. How did you develop that range? And was that coaching, or is that something you just naturally did to try to give James and Chris more space?
Naturally did that created more space, because I was like, if I space out a little bit further, for one, it's going to be a easier shot for me once I catch it, because they got a defense. They're either going to help or they're going to stick on me. So it's going to work out well for a team like us, because you're just standing in one area and you're just kind of watching the defense. So that's why I spaced out further and further.
Every time I've ever watched you in warm-ups shoot threes and you're doing your long threes, I'm always like, how does he get the ball there? Partially because you kind of shoot more of a set shot.
Right.
Right. And the strength there is incredible. You just said something about playing offense in Houston at that time was a lot of standing around. Now, they ran stagger away for you.
Yeah.
You get that on either side of the court. Outside of that, not a ton of play calls. Obviously, you talked about being downhill. You're talking about those closeouts. All of a sudden, an 8-foot closeout becomes a 10-foot closeout. If he gets overzealous on that closeout, you're strong right-hand driver. You get there, right? Creating free throws, scoring that way. But the adjustment from being in LA, where towards the end of that, first year, and certainly beyond that, you're getting plays called for you. You're an integral part of the offense in terms of having the ball in your hands. And certainly in New Orleans, same thing. Was that a difficult adjustment? More importantly than that, how hard was it for you to get the buy-in from yourself? Like, I got to just be off the ball now.
Yeah, it was definitely different for me, every organization. Of course, it worked out well for me in Houston because James, He was a willing passer, and he had to make a quick decision. If he wasn't scoring, he was going to make the right pass. And in New Orleans, like I said, we were a young team. Everybody was fighting to compete where, who can be the best young player in the league. Because, we had a good young team with Drew Holiday, Tyreek Evans, AD. Of course, Ryan was there. So we were all competing, but we all liked one another, but we were all, compete because we're all the same age. And then Clippers, they're a different situation. They do more ISO for Paul and Kawhi, and for me, I just kind of had to space the floor for them a lot more. So everywhere was just been different, man.
I think adaptability. That's probably why you've lasted
Yes.
16 years in the league. When James was at his peak, and he made the comments the other day, and we had a long discussion on it last week's podcast about the system comments. When James was at his peak, and he's in a game where he's getting 50, 60-point triple-doubles, what was it like playing with a player like that just had a complete control and mastery over every possession?
Yeah, I mean, the dude was hard. I mean, he was hard to guard because he's strong. Um, he's very deceptive with his footwork. He has just very explosive too. So it's going to be hard to guard. It's going to be very hard to guard him. But his motor was what's underrated because he can go hard throughout the whole game, just constantly attacking you, and also make the right plays. So I get what he means. Why I'm not a system guy. Of course, he can do it, but with him, you got to be a lot of free. You got to You got to let him go 1-on-1. You got to get him in the post. You got to let him. It'd be better for him that way. And then you got to work off him. And once you work off him, I would say he becomes more motivated to do everything as far as moving the ball, doing this, doing that. So I definitely get what he means.
Yeah, we all co-signed it. We all said he was speaking factual.